So just seeding along here, and everything was all hunky-dory, and it was beautiful, only 8-kilometer winds, and I just sent the guy out to go spraying, and all of a sudden, boom, we got hit with a blast of wind, probably gusting 30K, maybe 40K, and all of a sudden, we just lost, like, it's just hazy. The smoke just came in from the wildfires over in Alberta, and, like, Ashtyn even called from the town there, and she's like, are we on fire? Like, is this fire really close? Like, she can't even see across the street in the town that we're in right now at the North Farm. It's not that bad yet down here, but
here now, Mike. It's trying to pull the breakaway boom away from the sprayer.
Yeah, so I think we're done spraying.
I would say so.
Okay, then just take the sprayer over to... Actually, you don't even need to take it over to Sherby. Just kind of park it up in the field there a little bit, and then Leah pick you up.
Sounds good.
So yeah, the air quality is about to get really bad here, I do believe. Really bad.
Run, Rick, run! Holy man!
I am so...
And now it is May 17th. It's the next day. You can still see that there's smoke out there. There's not nearly as much smoke though, so we're pretty thankful for that. In fact, we just found out that Chapel, our 18-month-old little guy, he's allergic to smoke, or something, because I remember we actually went to a neighbor's house during Christmas, and they had their little wood stove going in there. It was very cozy, and they had some house dogs and cats. We went in there to visit, and it was within like 3 minutes of entering into that home, just broke out with hives all around his eyes and down his cheeks. So we instantly left, and we kind of contributed it to the animals and the hair, the dander, and all that fun stuff. So we actually took him to an allergist for, I don't know, we've been to the allergist many times because he's super sensitive little guy. He's allergic to just about everything under the sun. Thankfully, he's not allergic to the sun. And he also has some mastocytosis, which is too many mast cells in one area, and it makes him even more sensitive. Anyway, it's smoky. So Ashtyn took him from the house to the vehicle, and he instantly broke out in hives. And we are contributing now to the smoke, because the allergist, going back to the allergist, actually tested him for cats and dogs, and he's not allergic to those things. And we're like, well, that's weird, because he broke out really quick, really quick. But now we're thinking it's actually the wood stove that was going, because there's kind of, a bit of a nice smoky, Christmassy type smell. And it's very smoky outside here, very smoky. Not as bad as last night, but smoky, and instantly broke out in hives. So anyways, we're having to deal with that. That's fun time, especially with all the wildfires going on, and I'm sure he's not the only one. I'm sure there's lots of other people out there and children that are having a lot of trouble breathing, and could also be allergic to smoke. So that's a new one to us. So we're trying to work through that. We're going to have to put them in the sprayer where there's a charcoal air filter here pretty soon, and keep them in there until the smoke subsides, if it ever subsides anytime soon. But anyways, update on the seeding up here. As you know, we're done the mustard and the durum, and we are now rocking into red lentils. These are red lentils that we're seeding into canola stubble. But I'm actually seeding 2 crops at one time here. So I have barley on board, I have lentils on board, I got my nodulator on board, and I've got my mid-row on board, and I also have Foss on board, but there's just lots of stuff going on here. And the reason why I'm seeding 2 crops in one is lentils do not like saline ground at all. Not even the least little bit there. They won't do anything, they'll underperform, and you're really just throwing your money away putting lentils on saline ground. And so anyway, the best option for saline ground is barley. If you're going to grow a crop, especially if you've got it in a canola stubble, like canola does pretty good on it as well, but you're not going to put canola on canola stubble, so you need to have a cereal or a pulse or something like that. Barley is one of the best options. So we're putting barley into the saline areas, and then we're seeding lentils on probably 90% of the field, but the other 10% of the field that we're actually going to seed into barley, like all the low draws. So, and it's just kind of literally just sporadic. Like from those trees that way, it's good along the slough, but from those trees this way along the slough, it's a little darker in there, and it gets really dark, and it's saline, and then there's water coming out of the ground over there, and it's just a muck hole, and so we're seeding that the barley. So let's go out and take a look at some of this stuff. I have to hand me my mic here because it's a little bit breezy. We're actually gonna have to seed our way over to a spot that I can show you. Like right in here is kind of got some saline in it, so you're kind of, you can't do every spot. And then you're like, well, Mike, why don't you just find a field with no saline and then just put the lentils on that? And actually I have. This is one of those fields. But saline encroaches where there's lots of groundwater, and so there's a bit of a water run here, as you can see. Likes to come up. And then also, saline areas, they can develop right on side hills. Like seriously, right up on top of a side hill, water will literally start coming out of that side hill and then run down, and then it just turns into a muck bog, and then it brings all the salts with it, and then it's the salts that kill your seed when you seed into those salts. Now there is some grass called saltlander up over here, and we could put that grass into it, and it's actually resistant to the salt. Well, maybe resistant isn't the wrong word, but it is the best option. If barley isn't going to do the job, saltlander is your last hope. Obviously, if you got pure white chalk out there, you've already lost that battle. You got to try and deal with these areas before that, and the best way to do it is crop them hard, crop them really hard. Put crops under there that will suck that moisture right out of the ground, because that's what you need. You need to get that moisture out of that ground. And obviously, if your crops can't do that, then you need to start looking at grass options. And then maybe it grows 5 feet tall, and then you can hay it or get 2 crops off it. At least you're utilizing your ground. If you just let it sit, it'll just get worse and worse, and then it will just turn to pure salt. It'll turn completely white, and it's completely useless. It's ruined at that point. But it's way drier up here. In saying that, it's way drier up here this year on the North Farm seeding than it was last year. I'm going through areas that are dried up potholes that I had to go around last year. Last year, remember, we had a bunch of rain. This year, we haven't had rain yet. And that's okay. We still got lots of subsoil moisture up here. I'm not worried at all. Not worried at all. Might dry that top inch off, but we got tons of subsoil. Unlike the South Farm, we do not have subsoil at the South Farm. Even though we had all that snow, we still don't have it. When you're just doing your section control and you're just doing slivers, if you have like the saddle tank, it's just throwing out inoculant at 2.7 pounds, so it doesn't take much to trigger that warning. So when I want to switch into barley, I try and plan it so that way it's the easiest for spraying. Because you're like, Mike, how are you going to spray and harvest that when you got 2 crops on right on you? Well, you try and plan ahead. Like, you're not just making an S out in the middle of the field with barley, right? You got to kind of block it. You're like, okay, this little corner over here is like 5 acres. That's kind of high in saline. Let's just stick this little 5 acres and then try and make it so it's easy to seed around with your pulses, and it's easy easy to spray around. Also, you got to remember that your sprayer is 120 feet. This is only 84 feet. If you're only going to do one pass, that's fine with the drill, because you can fold those sprayer booms into 60 feet. So you can do it with 60 feet with a pass and a half. Make sense? So it can be done. There is higher risk of burning, you know, if you got a big wind blowing it one way, because obviously the herbicide that you would use to spray your lentils would kill your barley. The herbicide that you would put on your barley to kill the weeds would also kill your lentils. So it's vice versa. So you got to be very careful for spraying. And for harvest time, it is going to be a pain in the butt, but I would rather do the right thing with this soil the first time and get a crop. Lentils, if you guys are wondering, lentils are not a deep rooter. They're a very shallow rooted crop. So, and they do not use a lot of moisture. So hence it's a very poor idea to put them in areas with tons of moisture. Canola has a deep taproot on it. It will use a lot of moisture. It does do well in saline areas for the most part. Your cereals are kind of middle of the road. But barley seems to do the best in the saltier areas, from my experience. Chickpeas actually do pretty dang good as well in saline areas. They're also a very taproot, chickpeas are. Field peas are not. Field peas are like lentils though. They do not like to get their feet wet either. They don't do well in saline areas. And then you're like, well, Mike, what the heck is the difference between a chickpea and a field pea? That is a very good question. I would love to answer that for you, but I don't actually. I'm not sure of the reason why, of how they're made up. But chickpeas are a deeper rooter and they are a big moisture user. And the only downside to putting chickpeas into saline areas is they won't get enough stress. They got all the moisture in the world, but they won't get enough stress to pod. So you could, I have pictures. I'll see if I can't find an old picture. I might look a little shady, but of course I look a little shady all the time. But of some chickpea plants that were brushing the bottom of the fuel tank on the sprayer. That's like near 5 feet. 5 feet. I put them in saline areas. It sucked out a pile of moisture. But they podded. There was 101 pods on each chickpea plant, which is massive. That's like 80 bushel an acre or something like that. The downside is they just never came in, because chickpeas are a non-determinate crop, and as long as they have moisture, they will not naturally dry down. And yes, you can bring them along with herbicide and desiccant, but until they reach like 80 to 90%, you can't spray them, you can't desiccate them. And they'll be dead green in October, just using up that moisture. So sometimes you just use them as a moisture user, just suck that moisture out. But they are expensive to do that. Barley is your best option. It's cheaper. I'd like to also mention one note. This is the field. I did a bunch of canola trials last year. I swath some, I straight cut some naturally, and I desiccated this canola. The field that I desiccated, I was wondering how clean it would be in the spring, because it was decently dirty in the fall, and it's way cleaner in the spring because the canopy was really thick, and I actually had a lot of trouble cutting it. It was a good crop and it was all laid over. And I'm like, there is no way that spray is getting down to the ground. But it actually did a really good job, because the quarter just on the other side of those trees, I swathed that quarter, and it is way weedier. So that's good to know. So now I think we'll see how the year transpires, but I'm thinking I'll probably lean to desiccating all the canola and just cut it straight. Although I did just buy a brand new W170, but cross that bridge a little later. Alright, come down here, walk out to this drill for a second. Show you what these lentils look like after they come out of our meat grinder. They look orange. The reason why they look orange, because it takes the coating off of them. They should be blue, because they're seed treated blue. Sometimes I wonder why I even seed treat, because there's no seed treat on that seed anymore. Ha! See if we can. Well, Mike, you gotta slow your fan down, good sir. Slow that fan down. That fan is going as slow as it can go. I've already plugged one of those end towers already, because I had my fan going too slow. Here's some more. It's supposed to be blue, guys. It's supposed to be blue. I'm sure there's still some blue ones in here, but anyway, it just turns them orange. Don't take my word for it. I'll show you. There you go. Look at that, beauties. Look at that. Oh, guys, look here. We found one that's in good condition. That's what it's supposed to look like. Oh, there's another one. Oh, we got 4, we got 5. Guys, we got 5. How about over here? No, all orange. Yeah, these things are great for lentils. I'm gonna take you down here and show you the saline. All right, this is one spot. This is actually was seeded the barley. It's very black, gumboey muck. It's just mud, really. When you get into stuff like this, where nothing grows, it's just mud. Pretty soon, the only thing that grow in here is foxtail. See? This is bad. In fact, it'd be squishy. And then once it gets bad enough, it just sits with water. I was hoping to try and come through here and seed some barley into this, but I don't even know if barley will grow in this. But it'd sure be awesome to try to get something growing. If I can get across this or not. I don't know if I want to get stuck again. It wasn't very fun last time. But I'd sure like to get this seed. Here's some salt. It's just the salt. Here's some more salt coming up. So that's why lentils won't do nothing in this, so we're trying to get some barley going. That's why we're seeding 2 crops at one time, though we're not seeding 2 crops down the same boot at the same time. We're not intercropping here. All right, guys. I'm gonna get back to the drill. Catch you on the flip side. That was the update. I guess if you're wondering how the heck I'm switching between all these crops, it's because I have 5 different compartments in my tank and all have meters on them. So I've got nitrogen in 1, I've got phos in 2, barley number 3, and when they're flashing, well, it's flashing because of the camera, but it's just a steady red, means those tanks are off. I'm metering lentils out of 4, and I'm metering inoculant out of 5. And then as soon as I want to switch, I go pop, pop, and I go pop, 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 and pop those 3 on. And then I got to go to my tractor and up my fan speed, because I'm running 30, well, it's a little high right now. I was trying to run about 3,500 on the fan for the lentils. And I got to go up to like closer to 5,000 once I start pumping a lot of product with the barley and the phos. So there you go. Now you know. Now you know.